Hey guys, this is Coach Keita Bussey with 180 Firearms Training. Today we have Grant Chancellor Madison, Brian Harrington, and Mike Seifert. Welcome to the 180 Firearms Training Podcast. Hey Brian, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Alrighty, my name is Brian Harrington. I've been shooting USPSA since 2015. I started out actually shooting pretty much like a carry optics gun, but that was pre-carry optics, so I switched to limited, and then long story short, now I'm shooting PCC. I've been shooting PCC since 2018 and going to a lot more majors since right around that time.
Yeah. Brian's up by my area. Me and Brian shoot together a lot. Brian has beat my ass every time that we shoot. Yeah, no, somebody I look up to. You know, we talk all the time, and I'm always trying to get him, but he always seems to get me. I don't understand. You know, it seemed like Area 6 was just a right to left kind of match, so it's set up perfectly for him.
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily that was a lefty advantage match, but
no, I agree.
Maybe like
there was a few more right to left stage plans that most of the righties were running. And for me, like, I don't know, in that aspect, like me and my buddy Corey were talking about it. Like for me, how do you feel about it as a lefty? You normally, like for you, it's going more comfortable right to left, correct? Like how much more of an advantage does it have to be for you to be going left to right in order for you to go that way? Because that's what I found myself doing at Area 6 a lot, was like, yeah, I know that it seems like this sets up better right to left, but it's not good enough for me in my head that like I'm gonna go that way because it's so awkward shooting across my body. So like, how do you plan that? Do you just run the stage how it should be run? Like if it's got to come across your body, it is what it is, or like, you know?
Sometimes that, and then sometimes just it depends on target presentation. Like if it flows better for me as a lefty and shooting PCC, it's like the double negative or something like that. It's
the double win.
Awkward. It's awkward. I practice with predominantly righties because everyone's a righty, so I'm used to going the awkward way of going what would be from starting from left and shooting to right. So that to me is something I've done always.
Yeah. Okay.
So
you're over it then, is what you're saying. Is like it doesn't matter if you're gonna go right to left or left to right, like whatever the stage dictates, not necessarily what you're comfortable with. So yeah, maybe I gotta work on that.
Typically, yeah. I try not to let that bother me. I mean, sometimes it does with some stages. I mean, since we just shot Area 6 recently, there was a couple stages that I had to shoot completely backwards of everybody else. But for the most part, I try not to let that stuff bother me, because as long as the target presentation flows better, I'll go with the better of the two options, or from what I perceive to be better of the two.
Yeah.
Are you ready? Stand by. If you are finished, unload and show clear.
Yeah.
What is your preferred technique that you use moving toward your non-dominant side with a rifle?
Towards my non-dominant side. So again, I guess it really depends on what the target presentation is. If it's like a retreat, I will hold the gun out in front of me, pointing at the back berm while retreating in that direction, and then swing the gun back up to present to the upcoming target. It's not ideal. I mean, there's no way around that I can, unless I mean, shooting PCC makes it harder too, because you got this big, long, awkward gun and trailing that thing behind you. So it's just, it kind of is what it is. I try not to dwell on those types of scenarios. I'm going to just have to lose a little bit of time to get those shots in and, you know, not break the 180. And
what about moving
try not
laterally?
to let that stuff bother me.
Well, she's
laterally
talking like
to your right as a
gun drag it. Do you do a gun drag, or are you gonna like grab it with your weak hand and run the other way? So like, because you know, always going the opposite way when you have a PCC is a little weird. So like for me, like I usually do a gun drag.
I'll try and do a gun drag, but then I tend to do a lot of these like side hop things that, to me, I don't know. That's what I really like doing, just like side shuffle, side steps.
Yeah. If it's only like 2 or 3 steps, yeah.
Correct. Big movements I'll do hopefully there's not a wall that's close that I could like potentially snag my muzzle on, but I'll, break grip in that scenario and just do essentially a gun drag behind me in that scenario.
So let's say you have to move the distance of 2 walls, 2 full-size walls or more. Then what are you going to do?
Yeah, I'd probably do drop the gun, drag behind me, and turn my body and turn my hips towards the direction I want to go and run.
I know a lot of the top guys do the gun drag, but I feel like it literally creates drag.
Right.
You're putting this mass behind you when you could be throwing it out in front of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, again,
I'd like to insert this video that we were just talking about the other day, Brian. So me and Brian had sent me one of his stages from Area 6, and I'll send in mine also. Maybe Keita can play them back to back. We're like, Brian, we both start behind a table, and your muzzle's got to be on a mark on the table. Brian was much more behind his gun. So when the beat came, he threw his gun straight out in front of him and get the momentum going to the corner. So whereas I kind of like tried to sidestep the table a little bit, and I had my gun off to the side. So when I started, I didn't have any of the momentum of my gun going that way. It was more or less just like my body, and I felt like I was having to pull the gun with me. And I said, instantly, I was like, oh, your start was so much better. He's like, well, what are you talking about? I was like, it was just, the difference of me being a foot and a half, more behind my gun versus off to the side. And like, I could have gotten off to that corner so much quicker. So it's all about them little things.
Let's see what these two hooligans are up to here. We've got Brian on top, Mike on the bottom. Just watch it at full speed first. So the discussion was Mike was more behind the table and Brian was able to move his body to the side a little bit to get a little bit of a better start. What I'm seeing is Brian has a much better advantage in getting low and staying low, and he can shock absorb with his hips, knees, and ankles, where Mike is up really tall doing more of a step drag. So I'll slow this down, light him up like a Christmas tree, and show you what that looks like. So you can see how tall Mike is standing. Now Mike is doing the step drag, which I really like. I'll show that to you here. So let's take a look again at that start. I'll slow it down, back it up. I'll slow it way down. It looks to me like they're actually both taking a fairly direct path toward their first target. The difference I'm seeing is how they're taking off with their legs. Mike does a little jump before going, where Brian does a push off, which is much more efficient. And you can see the lines are pretty straight on Mike most of the time on his legs, where Brian's are always at an angle. Makes it a little easier to get your hits that way. So that's that.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I try and keep my gun since that stage specifically we're talking about, you started with the buttstock mounted on your shoulder. So to me, I try and not take my gun off my shoulder at almost all costs. And so therefore I could always, it's the same concept of always having your handgun up and ready to fire. And, it feels awkward sometimes for sure when you're doing these weird movements with the gun still mounted. But to me, I see it as the gun's always ready. It's always where I want to be to when I can shoot. So the second I can see the target, I can break that shot.
So
well, that's fine if you're continuously shooting, but what if you have a longer move?
Like a very long run.
Then it's going to hold you back movement-wise.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. At that point, yeah, I'll drop the gun down, either if it's a strong side movement or a weak side movement. Usually a weak side movement would be me dragging the gun behind me. Not always, but usually, I guess. And then if I'm going towards my strong side, I'll just pump my gun while running towards that area.
And that's why I always feel so much more comfortable going from left to right for me as a righty, because your gun is, you can almost shoot as you're running because the gun's like ready to go. And it's not shouldered, but I mean, like to me, that's why having to come across the stage the opposite way is just so like, when I look at a stage play, maybe it's something I got to change, because a lot of the righties, like I shot with Isaac and a few other PCC shooters, and a lot of them went the opposite way. And I was just like, Isaac made it look good a few times, but everybody else that shot it from right to left, it just like looks so awkward. Like, oh, that's weird right there, weird right there. Like, I just felt so much better about my plan. And I don't know.
I mean, I think a big part of that too is just like the foot movement too. I mean, like I've told you before to try and keep the knees bent, stay low. And
Yeah,
then,
Mike.
he likes
You're
to stand
always up so
straight and
tall.
Yeah,
being
because
on
my
one
knees
foot.
hurt. So I played too much baseball when I was a kid, and my knees are shot kind of. So for me to get down in that position, I guess maybe I got to go to the gym, but that's a lot of work, you know. So like I just, you know, like my knees are too weak for me to be down that way and like still be comfortable. Like I feel like it's just a lot of strain. So that's why I'm usually more upright. I don't know. I got a lot of weird things I do with my game, you know, and apparently it's not good because Brian just beats me every time. So you know.
Well, I mean, you might have the fastest transitions from one position to the next, but I try and
if you take two mics and a delta in between those two arrays, it doesn't really work. So
I mean, I was about to say it's a very fast mic or two or a no shoot, but you know, it looks good on the ground.
So I got
one thing.
Well, go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
I was going to say the one thing I reiterate to Mike, and I tell a lot of people that ask me questions about shooting, is just shoot alphas. It's literally that simple. Like people like Mike or myself are top shooters. We're all fast. We can all move fast. We can all move efficiently. The problem is obviously just shooting the center of the target. And it sounds so stupid, but I swear that's one of the things that I try and maintain throughout basically every single stage is the consistency of shooting alphas. And I feel that's honestly how I won Area 6 this past.
Smoked it.
Like a couple weeks ago, whatever it was.
You killed it though.
So what kind of
I didn't feel
percentage
good.
are you looking for alpha wise? Do you have a set percentage, or are you just basically I'm going to shoot all alphas on every single target?
I'm going to try. I mean, I know there's obviously going to be scenarios where you're shooting on the move, and you know, I'm really target focused. I can call my shots probably 95% of the time, and maybe even more than that. I'm not really sure what my number would be for that, but regardless, if I'm moving and I call a bad shot, that's like a Charlie, and you know, it's that kind of is what it is. But if it's something that's like a Delta or even a Mike, that's definitely something where I'm going to stop and I'm going to make that up.
Yep.
It's
yep.
sometimes hard.
Well, let's put it this way, Grant. He had like 200. What was it? Like 210 alphas and like 30 Charlies or something like that, or something ridiculous.
I think it was 210 alpha. I think I had 39 or 8 Charlie. I had one Delta, which was like the easiest target that I shot a Delta on.
That always happens.
I had one no shoot, and kind of the same thing with that. I had a no shoot on a target that was just like a give me target, and I was just trying to go fast and pulled off into a no shoot. But I did make it up though, because I did call that shot as a no shoot, so it wasn't like a huge time added.
Well, it's interesting for me because some people argue that like open targets present that their own challenge. And I feel like Area 6 was a little bit of a hoser match. It was. So like what makes it more difficult for you as a shooter? Because some people just say like, you know, that if you stick enough open targets out there, it is what it is. But I mean, like, what is it, like hardcover, more no shoots, more swingers? Like, what to you is the difference between like a level 1 match and a level 2 match? Because we were kind of talking about this on our last podcast with Bill a little bit, and just like what
I see
the difference.
I see for myself, swingers or something that the more difficult swingers, like Florida sectional last year in December, they had some very difficult swingers, kind of like the same thing on stage 12 of Area 6, where you never really saw the target at rest. It's always during its
at the height
power phase of it swinging. So you had to time it properly. And at Area 6, I fortunately did that. I kind of had that lefty advantage where I could shoot the activator at the beginning of the stage, and then the last target I was shooting was the swinger. So it slowed down substantially by the time I was shooting at it. So that worked out for me. The lefty advantage for once, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's more lefty.
There's more righty advantages than lefties because everyone's a righty. So
I could see that in a way, but in a way also I'm like, maybe I'm just so used to it doesn't even feel like a lean for me that, and then it's a lean for you, because I know how it feels sometimes coming up to a left wall. That's not so bad, but I don't know. I always feel like I'm getting screwed with lefty leans that are kind of difficult. I've been working on my left shoulder game a little bit, trying to get around those, but yeah, I don't know. You always say you're getting screwed too, so we're always
I mean, for sure. I mean, even at nationals last year, my first stage, I had a target where I couldn't even see the target mounting the gun lefty, so I shot weak shoulder, and weak eye, my weak eye to shoot a target presentation. And to say the least, that wasn't a warm and fuzzy feeling for our first stage of nationals, since it was my first nationals also. And I was on a squad of a lot of big shooters, so it was kind of intimidating.
How'd you do in nationals?
I came in fourth.
Yeah. So Brian, was that the first time you took fourth in Nats, or what'd you do the year before that? Did you go to Natties?
He didn't shoot it. That was his first nationals.
Never been to nationals.
You took fourth. Yeah. So I mean, me and Brian have been talking, and before he went to Natties, I remember at one point saying, like, I'm getting tired, PC, I want to put it down. And then he saw that he was in the super squad. Then I got a text message of the squad. He's like, well, there's the fire that I needed. So
I was close to bailing. And then, some people have asked me how I got on the super squad. And to say the least, I just emailed match directors being like, can I be on the super squad? I've done well at area matches. And eventually the answer was yes. And then that obviously changed my mind about going to nationals. So nice. I'm happy with my decision for sure.
Yeah, congrats.
Something I noticed in your videos.
Yeah.
Something I noticed in your videos I really liked is your shot calling is internal rather than external, meaning you're feeling the way you pulled the trigger, what your sights were doing, what your body was doing versus, listening for a hit on the steel, looking for a hole in the target, waiting for a steel to fall. You have an internal process. So there's no lag time between your shot that you felt something wasn't quite right and your makeup shot is immediate. So I thought
so much so to the point that sometimes I accidentally throw 4 instead of 3. That definitely has happened a bunch where, people have asked me why I shot 4 rounds at a target. I'm like, well, I meant 3, but 4 just kind of happened.
Well, that goes back to shot calling, right? So we were talking about shot calling before. I mean, if you can call your shots, when one wasn't there. And it doesn't even, it sounds
absolutely.
Like you're throwing a triple on purpose, like 1, 2, 3, but 1 or 2 was not good. That's why I'm throwing a third shot. So if you, for the people out there that are listening, that's like one big area that you could do is to learn how to call your shots better, because you're making up shots without having to think about it versus,
well, he's not just throwing extra rounds. He feels something go wrong. Like, oh, I didn't really like the way I pulled that trigger. So immediately takes another shot. He's not just throwing a shot, just throw a shot.
Is it that, or are you just not seeing your dot? Which one is it? So to me,
no, I see my dot. I always see the dot. It's usually just calling a bad shot. And then the other thing too is I'm so target focused. I probably see, like I said, around 95% of the holes in the target. I can physically see them. Now, obviously, if we're getting past 35 yards, that's kind of hard to see. But for the most part, I can see my bullets going through targets. Not obviously as they're flying, but
yeah, my eyesight is terrible. So I wish I had it.
Yeah, so if you're looking at your spot, the bullet should theoretically go there if you're doing everything else right. What you're sensing from what I saw in the video was when you were getting a drift that something else wasn't lining up quite right. Even if you were looking at your spot, you knew something else was wrong, and it looked to me like trigger pull.
Yep.
All right, I got a question. So we had kind of asked this to Manny, I did ask this to Manny, but what was the biggest piece of advice you've ever gotten in this game? And when did you get it? Was it when you first started? And what's the biggest piece of advice essentially that you kept with you from the start to now?
You're going to find out one of the sources of my quotes now that I use all the time. I was actually talking to Mason Lane, and he was telling me, just shoot alphas. It sounds so stupid, but for some reason that clicked to me so much. It's so simple, but it's so difficult. And obviously it's just practicing to always have that mindset of just shooting alphas. I don't know. Well, I wish I had better advice than that. But it's just
I know that
seems to have worked for me so much. It'd just be more concerned of, again, at least I'm speaking for myself, and even you, Mike, we're fast movers, we're fast shooters. If you clean up the shot placement, then your time's already there for having the raw time. So if you can clean up the shot placement, then that raw time will get you to at least top places at majors.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, that's one going back to, I know you listen to our podcast with the Fraley podcast, and when he practices, what I thought was interesting, he said that Charlie is pretty much a miss. Delta's definitely a miss, but
absolutely. I always call it Delta a non-procedural mic.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's valid. I mean, I'll take one over none, but you know.
I mean, I will too. I mean, like I said, at Area 6, I had a Delta and like a target. I didn't call a Delta on it, and
yeah,
it is what it is. But alphas, you need the alphas. Without being able to shoot alphas at whatever the target presentation is, then, in my opinion, I know you were talking about this with the Manny Bragg interview too, about how you were saying, is it worth the time? And I try and go for not stage wins. I try and go for consistency of getting 95% of the points and doing it as fast as I can.
Right. I have a
I'm not trying. I don't look at scores. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, we can talk about live scoring a little bit. That don't bother me.
I absolutely want to touch that subject for sure.
Okay, technical question. Where do you place the buttstock on your body?
Great question. So I before doing USPSA and all this, when I was younger, I did a lot of skeet shooting. So I feel like I hold my PCC more so like a shotgun than anything. So point being is the top of the buttstock is right under my collarbone in my pocket. And I pull it back into me, and Mike just kind of more stands up straight like this, where I have my shoulder kind of tucked back and tense, and everything in my shoulder area is all tensed up. And
then you roll your shoulder forward over it.
Roll it kind of like back and up, and then so when I'm mounting my gun, I'm also using like this part of my shoulder to mount to get my cheek well to be where I want for my sight alignment. And
yeah, I saw that was different in your videos.
That to me is, yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's like the right way. It's just the way that's always worked for me.
So yeah, if it works for you, great. But for those who are still trying to find what works for them, Max Leograndis put out this great video on buttstock placement. Mike, were you the one who sent that to me?
I was.
Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, so he talks about how, and I've tested this, if you put it in sort of the pit of your shoulder, that indentation area, then the muzzle, if you're right-handed, the muzzle goes off to your left. If you're left-handed, the muzzle goes off to your right. And I saw you just now as you were imitating holding your gun, you have your right hand like the muzzle is off to the right, or your
yeah,
right
absolutely. Hand. Yep.
I can't switch hands.
Instead of if I'm straight at the target, I'd be more holding my gun a little off to the right.
So what he found
straight at the target.
What he found and did his video on was taking that buttstock and just moving it a couple inches in. So it's a little bit more into your chest, and then rolling your shoulder directly forward. As you roll it forward, it locks it into your cheek weld.
Yep. Actually,
it might be, I don't know if you want to mess with changing anything, if you're really happy with what you're doing.
My thing is, if you're so bladed.
Especially not in the on season.
Yeah, well, if you're so bladed while you're in a hard position, to try and get out of it, I would imagine there's a lot of force that you need to put into your body to actually get out of that position in that bladed stance.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say
recoil management though. All that is about recoil management. So
well, it's a 9mm like rifle. That's I mean, it's not a shotgun.
They bounce around.
Grant, who used to shoot 40.
Yeah, they bounce around, and I mean, Brian shoots an MPX, so his is softer than most, but.
Yeah.
I mean, they definitely move a little bit. And, when you're in PCC and you're trying to go for the top slot, I mean, it's the difference between, if my gun's bouncing Alpha Charlie or Alpha Delta and his is Alpha Alpha, because you're really just kind of hammering the trigger twice, hoping that it stays planted. But that technique that Max uses actually just plants your dot a little bit better. And it's amazing how it works. I was at the range the first time with one of my buddies, Craig, who never shoots PCC ever. I just happened to, I needed to go to the range, and he's a member at the range that was near my house. So we ended up going. I let him shoot my gun. I was like, hey, I want you to try something, because I was telling him just to shoot 6 as fast as he could. And, they'd be like 1, 2, 3. They'd be all over the paper, right? But then I was like, okay, now, I saw this video with Max. I just want you to see, bring this thing closer into here. And then I want you to kind of like tuck your shoulder and then pull it back into yourself. And like, it's amazing how much it steadies your dot, where you can, your 6 shots are now in a much tighter circle. For me, my problem is, I know that video is there, and I try to practice that when I'm at home, but I've been doing it so long now where my gun just naturally kind of comes to the outside of my shoulder here, that I have a really hard time, off of a start, and I'm trying to go fast to get it into that pocket. Now, if I have a little bit of a longer run from the beep to P1, then okay, I can make sure I get it in there. But if I'm just have a target right in front of me and I snap it up, I'm still, I'm still in my bad habit of being out here when you need to be over here, so it's kind of just a different feeling. But Yeah, I think that was a great video, and it's super helpful for recoil control. But
Yeah, physiologically, it just makes more sense. And I mean, obviously, it's working for Max.
Yeah.
I've tested it on a lot of people after he put that video out, and it does work, but it's just like trying to change your grip when you shoot a pistol. It takes a few weeks of dry fire, and then you have to apply it to a match, and it's not something you want to do during the on season, but maybe something to play around with and see what you think during the off season.
which is a lot easier to do it right the first time, you know?
Right.
I've
Well,
never
the thing
really
is,
had a
there was
class.
no research out there. When PCC started, it was just us trying to like play around on the range. And does this work? Yes. Does this work? No. Does this work? Sometimes.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to figure it out.
yep. That's where you need a timer and a little bit of practice, you know? But yeah. So Brian, what are your goals for this year? I mean, after coming off of 4th place at your first PCC Nationals ever, I'm sure that little lit a fire under you a little bit. Like 4th sucked, you wanted 3rd at least now. So like, are you going hard PCC this year? How many majors are you shooting? Where are you shooting?
So this year, it's pretty much the same as the past 2 years have been. Honestly, we're just shooting a bunch of majors. I'm doing Area 8 Delmarva with you this coming weekend.
It is, yeah. We're on the same squad. Awesome. Yeah, looking forward to that one.
I'm doing a lot of more so driving matches this season. I'm doing Dragons Cup, actually. That one's coming up pretty soon too.
I'll see you there.
I'll see you there as well.
Awesome. Yeah, we should get together.
I won't be running, but I'll be there.
I think like the last 5 people we've had on this podcast are all going to Dragons Cup.
Well, I heard such great things about it last year, and I bailed on
It's better than Nationals.
Well, me too, and I wanted to go, and then when I looked, it was all full, and now like, oh, you're going, and then, you know, Manny's going. I mean, everybody's going. It's unbelievable.
So last year I had signed up for Dragons Cup with some friends, and then we actually ended up switching to go to Area 6 last year because I wanted to shoot against Justine Williams and Max Legranda. So switched to that. Had a great time. Max ended up shooting Dragons Cup after too, which that was pretty cool. But I just heard such great things about it from all the people I knew that went to Dragons Cup. So might as well go. And then,
I think
especially
it's the
since they
best
have like
match in the
cash
country.
prizes for like stage wins for division pending participants, I felt like that would be something to check out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a good time.
Look, I mean, one of my favorite matches I shoot every month is a knockdown seal match, because if you win your division, you get like, you know, it costs $15 to shoot. They'll give you like $45 depending on how many people shot. It's like, you know, like it's a very nice motivation, because like when you think about it, it paid for my gas, it paid for most of my rounds to shoot the match. And like, you know, I got it. Next month I show up, I get my money. I don't even have to bring money. I just give them money out of my envelope. So it's like, I love matches that have cash prizes. I think that's awesome. You know, definitely some motivation.
Yeah, and so I feel like if they had good prizes at matches, they would draw bigger crowds of people, basically, like Dragons Cup is. I mean, Area 2 last year had decent prizes too, and I ended up winning a Dillon 750 at that match for winning Area 2 PCC last year.
Nice.
And I have to keep on rubbing this in. I won an Atlas at the Dragons Cup last year.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So Grant, you're going to Dragons Cup this year. What do you think?
I'm looking forward to it, but I'm obviously, I mean, do you want to win the match, or do you want to win some stages and get some prize money? That's also kind of a thing. So if you shoot consistently and stay, you know, 95% of the winner, you don't.
Brian's going to stay consistent.
You might win the match. So
he wants the overall.
I'm not looking to win stages.
I might actually. I've given some thought. I might actually just go for a stage win or two.
Got to pay for that trip somehow, Grant. You know.
Exactly. I don't care if I.
Have you figured out how many? Hold on. Have you figured out how many stage wins you need to pay for your trip?
Pretty much all of them at this point, but I don't think that's going to happen. But if I can get some of the money back, that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll win a prize too.
If I win a gun, Mike, I'll let you buy it at a decent price.
Well, yeah, you can't bring it back with you, so.
Well, no, I can't. But at least Mike can get something.
Yeah, no, I got my PCCs. I actually just got my pistol. So I
literally got
a pistol.
Brian, what do you shoot?
I shoot a SIG MPX.
Okay.
Not for nothing.
SIG MPX.
He's the only guy I know that can get that thing working without.
Right?
Those things are great. You keep them clean and they run just like a charm.
That's what I said. I tell him, Kita, all the time. I tell him that's exactly what I said the first year I owned one too. And then, shortly thereafter, it just did not work anymore, no matter what I did.
I mean,
Brian's still in the left phase, the honeymoon phase.
Well, this is the thing now, right? Especially now as of recently too, because I have a practice one, and then I have a match one, and then I have a backup match one. So I have 3 of them.
What is your rotation schedule for that?
I can't really tell you because I just kind of acquired this many. So they're all right now. I'm breaking in 2 of them. So it's kind of, and by breaking in, I have maybe 1,500 rounds through them, and I don't really.
That's
new.
actually in my
They're
next
very new.
book, rotation schedules for guns and match guns and backup match guns and practice guns. I'm putting that on a schedule so that they all wear out sort of together and stay consistent across your guns.
Yeah. So I originally was running 2 for quite some time and I never actually ended up using a backup one ever. So I've had one malfunction at a major.
You don't need the
backup
backup one until you need the backup one.
Well, I figure if I have it with me, then I got it. But knock on wood, I have not had any issues. And
are you practicing with your backup gun?
So yes, I actually have been using that one predominantly just because I wanted to get some round count on it before going to Area 6. So I shot that one exclusively for about a month and a half prior to Area 6 just to get some round count on it.
And check for reliability, any issues that might come
Yeah.
up. So it happens in practice instead of at the match.
Exactly. And then my match one I use that one's been very consistent and reliable since I've had that one. I've had that one for, I don't know, a year and a half now or something. Not really sure.
What does your maintenance schedule look like?
On the guns? All right. So I probably do a full disassembly minus the trigger assembly of it every 1,500 rounds. I'll take the gas system out. It's predominantly the difference between the MPX and what Mike's shooting is. It's a piston gun. So it gets kind of dirty. I mean,
yeah, that's probably why so many guys struggle with the MPX. They're
if you're
keeping it
shooting
running because they're not cleaning it properly.
Yeah, if you're shooting the polymer coated bullets or dirty powder like tight group, you're gonna run into problems after a while with that thing. And
basically, you're cleaning it every week, I'm assuming.
Essentially, yeah.
Every single week you're taking. Well, that's okay.
I don't take not the gas system. I'll do 1,500 rounds between taking the gas system apart, and I'm just doing that just for my own. I've always been under the mentality of a clean gun is a reliable gun, so I would rather not have problems. So why not eliminate all of them that I can be in control of?
And what about the trigger assembly?
Well, who cares?
So I've gone through quite a bit of triggers trying to figure out which one was the one that. The other part that falls into it too is, again, the MPX being different than a standard Air 9 blowback gun, but I was recommended the Hyperfire Eclipse, and that's what's run 100%, and I have that in all of mine.
I like
they're a great trigger. They're a great trigger. Nice and light. Like the factory MPX trigger, it's a really nice trigger, but it was just, in my opinion, too heavy. So I wanted to substitute it out with something that.
Wait a minute. The Gen 2 or the Gen 3?
Which one? The MPX?
Yeah, the Gen 3 you're talking about?
I have both. I have Gen 2s and Gen 3s.
Gen 2. I had a Gen 2, and that I thought was the worst trigger I've ever felt on the stock trigger. It was gritty. It was
but I don't think yours was the competition model though.
No, it was not. That's what I'm saying. It was a Gen 2.
And that's exactly why. So yours was Gen 2 non-competition. So mine are all the SIG MPX competition. And so it has a 16-inch barrel with a 3-port muzzle brake. I think that's really the only differences between the non-competition and a different handguard actually, but and the trigger too actually. Yeah, the standard trigger that they put on them is kind of junk.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hyperfire is very good. I like them.
Well, I was going to say before about the cleaning schedule, because Grant was like, "Oh my God, you clean it once every week and a half." I mean, it's definitely more intricate than a pistol. And to me, for Brian cleaning out the gas system, or look, it already takes an hour if you're really going to do it right. I don't know. By the time you break everything out and you clean everything off, and then you put it back together, lube it up, and put everything away, it's an hour at least. So
Yeah,
I'd say
you
that's
just
about
got
right.
back from the range. You just got back from the range, and now you want me to take an hour of my life. I mean,
No, never happens,
I can spend
Eric.
an hour with my family, or I can spend an hour.
No, well, I do.
Then probably
And
become burglars or something. So,
well,
like,
I'm just
rather,
saying.
it's like,
well, you clean your gun before the
wanna-
next match. So I'm done after that match. I'm not going to clean it after the match
Yeah.
right away. I put it down and
Same.
I'm going to go do whatever I'm doing. But like, during my match prep of my next match, it's like, all right,
Yeah.
I'm going to put it apart and clean
I'll
it.
wipe
So,
it down.
yeah.
Well,
I mean,
usually
look,
what
if
I'm
I
doing is I'm
take
just
off a
wiping them
slide
down
and,
too.
Like
just take out the bolt and wipe all the bolt down, put some oil on it, on all like the metal rubby parts, and that's
yeah.
it.
Now, how much do you put though? Because like this is one problem that I find with a lot of people that shoot PCC that are new to it is that like they put like literally 2 drops of oil and they're like, oh, it's good, and it's like, dude, I literally take my bolt and I coat it in oil and I just like rub it in my hands, like the whole thing is coated, and the inside I do the entire inside, like it's not hurting anything. I don't understand why.
I usually go in with a needle oiler bottle and
Yep.
put it just where it needs to go, and just
I
basically
think-
anything that's metal rubbing metal.
So
I
you
think
only
the
work with a
fear
paintwear mark?
is,
Interesting.
I think
You
the
only-
fear of adding a lot of oil is attracting dirt and grit, and people don't want that in their guns.
Well,
So
what
that's
happens
why
if
they
you
look
clean
at
them
just
once
the
a
rubbing
year?
points.
So you got to clean it more than once a year. That's the problem.
Yeah,
It's
and
like,
then
lube
the other
piss out
thing
of
I
it.
do too is I always bag my gun. I don't have one of those baby stroller 3-gun carts, whatever, and strap it to that. I put it in a bag because I don't put a dot cover over my red dots. I just put it in the bag after and zip it up, and then it stays nice and clean. The other thing too, if I over oil too, being a lefty and the ejection port is right in front of my face, I
Ooh,
can get a lot of oil in
yeah,
my face.
you get a face full.
Yeah, yeah. So there's definitely a happy medium balance with being too much oil on it. So
Yeah. Not
You
for
don't
me.
have any issues, Mike?
No,
Too much oil?
no, never. It does. I mean, yeah, the first couple rounds, I mean, if you're like shooting next to a table, you could see that you just splattered oil all over the table, but I don't really care. The thing runs.
I mean, even with Mike's gun, he has a side charger, so that is a lot more exposure to getting dirt inside of the gun too. If you're in like a dusty environment, like if you're shooting in like a desert type area, that that could be a problem. So in those type of scenarios, you could lube less, I guess.
Well, I mean, I always think about it like if it's a one-day match, I'm going to get through it. So
Exactly, you're going to be fine in that one day. At the end of the day, at the hotel or whatever, you take the bolt out, you wipe it down, you put some new oil on it, you call it good.
right,
Unless you're in
that'll make it.
Aruba and they won't let you have your guns.
Yeah,
I guess that's something I would not know.
international matches. Yeah, you can't have it in Puerto Rico though. So are you coming to that Puerto Rico match? I heard that you were talking about it. I think that would be a lot of fun for next year. That would be your first like IPSC USPSA international match. You bring the girlfriend,
do it.
do the whole thing. Let's like all bring it together and like have some fun down in Puerto Rico. That'd be a good time.
Mike's gonna get it all mapped out.
Oh, dude, that was the greatest. And we saw those people. They were at Area 6, and I got to say hi and how everybody was doing, and looking forward to February. So yeah,
Yeah.
I like IPSC matches. They're fun. They're just a little bit more of a hassle to get to.
Mike likes IPSC matches right there.
I do, but we don't do that.
IPSC requires accuracy.
Well, it's DVC, isn't it? What's the first one? What's the D? Isn't that speed? So I got that. Well, what else?
So Mike,
Yeah, go ahead.
we were talking before about how you stand up pretty tall and you said your knees are kind of bad.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. If you can get down lower, if you're lowering your center of gravity, that gives you a steady base to shoot from, which helps maybe not guarantee alphas, but increase likelihood of hitting alphas.
Yeah. Well, I
If
mean,
you can just drop your center of gravity down, you're going to be a lot more accurate right
So you're
away.
telling
Just
me-
that one thing.
you're telling me standing on 1 foot as tall as I can is not a good thing? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Again, very hard habit to break. I've tried to break
It is.
And
I
I've
have
been saying
some
that to Mike
techniques to help
forever.
you
Mike,
break
if you
it.
stop shooting like a flamingo, then
Right.
Well, I mean, I feel like if you just focus on your dot, Mike, the rest will fall into place.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I
No,
appreciate
focus
all
on the
It's that
target, not
easy.
the dot.
positive thoughts
Well,
here.
This is baby steps. But anyway, speaking of that, Brian, optic setup. What do you run? What do you zero at?
I am running a Loophole Delta Point Pro. I actually just recently put an offset on my match gun because I wish I had one at nationals, but I've never ran one before, but I did right before Area 6. I put an offset. So I have 2 Delta Point Pros on my gun. I have a 2.5 MOA dot. I zero at 25 yards. So anything within 25 yards, especially since the MPX has a bigger offset than a traditional AR PCC, it like, I don't know, like 5 yards. I'm like maybe like 2.5 inches of sight over bore. So everything up close, but within 25 yards, for the most part, I am aiming above the target.
Yeah. Well, that's because of that gas system that sits on top of the barrel. That's why. So
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, as long as you practice it and you know exactly where your
that's
bullet's going to
absolutely what I
go, it
practice.
doesn't
I
really
mean,
matter where you zero.
past that 25-yard point, I just, hold center mass and hope for the best, I guess.
We just like asking people that question so we can make fun of them, but it really doesn't matter as long as you know your zeros.
I also shoot 115 grain bullets at like about 140 power factor, because my gun, in my opinion, now I could talk to some other MPX shooters, like Mike used 147s back when he had the MPX, and it's just, I don't know. I don't like it. It felt too sluggish to me. I would rather have the recoil impulse be fast and quick, and it feels like I can get back on target faster with those bullets. I mean, 115, 124, that's not really much of a difference, but 147's out of the gun. I'm sure like anything, you can get used to them, but
I think 115 is the best.
115.
It was always so soft to me, and I did multiple tests, man. I mean, everybody's 115 bullets that they would make, they just felt so hot to me and snappy. And that 147,
I just feel like it's all just,
it felt like it was
whatever you like.
Yeah, it felt like it was lobbing out of the gun. It was nice.
I've had this debate with people that love 147s out of the MPX, and I'm just like, hey, if you like that, then you do you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm running 120.
Save a little bit of money.
Well,
that's honestly why I first started doing it. I was like, well, 115s are cheaper, so I might as well shoot those.
And it works better.
I also like how the bullets get to the target faster. So like a long distance like steel shot, if you're waiting for some audible ding from hitting a steel plate, then 1,200 feet per second is faster than 900.
Right.
It happens.
So I'm guessing you reload, Ryan?
Yes, I do. I just recently got a Dillon 1100. I love that press.
Ooh, what an upgrade! Nice,
fancy.
Okay, so at the end of the day, those guns were designed for run with NATO ammo first and foremost, and then we just push them into competitions. So we kind of have to look at that in that vein. But also in IPSC, if your bullet is below 115 grades, you're not in the match.
Really?
Yeah. If your bullet, it needs to be between 115 and higher or something. But if it is found to be 114.9 and they do a chronograph and they pull the bullet and weigh it, that's your match gun.
Even if just one of them is under 115? What if you have
if the lucky round that you give them to be pulled for them to weigh is below 115, you get DQ'd.
So before you load your bullets, you pick out your lucky rounds that you're going to hand to the RO.
That, or you just make sure that the company you're using is a little bit overzealous.
Yeah, but then there's a big variable of are they using a junky scale compared to your extremely high-end scale that you're using? Because I mean, we all know that they're not pulling out like $1,000 scales to weigh projectiles at a major match, and even the same thing with like the chronographs. Like, are they using?
It's just something to be aware of if you're running the 115s.
Well, I just feel like chronographs at major matches are like disposable almost, because I mean they got staff in that bay.
Right.
Like, I feel like not most of the time, but sometimes you'll go to a match and you'll hear that they're on their third chrono because they got shot twice already, and it's like, oh boy. Well, I like those track bands where they just stay back.
I mean, I can't say I've heard of the bullet weight issue, but I just know I've never. I mean, my whole thing that I always say is my bullet is supersonic, so therefore I must be good for power factor.
Yeah.
So if you go shoot an IPSC match,
to be aware of.
So if you go shoot, I think what Grant is saying is if you go shoot in Puerto Rico, maybe consider bringing your 124 versus 115 if they have chrono.
You know, they ran that match. It was a hybrid match though. So that wasn't even a true IPSC match. That was like they ran I was able to take a sight picture. We weren't allowed to run outside the line, so it was like a hybrid between IPSC, USPSA, and there were some things that were cherry picked and some things that weren't. But it was still, I mean, it felt like an IPSC match more or less, other than I was able to take a sight picture. So yeah, it was a little different.
So this is a question I want to ask the PCC guys on optics, because obviously we might see the PCC World Shoot in the US and it might become its own division. How long until you guys think we're going to see matches where it might actually be useful to have an LPVO on your PCC?
It's only get out to 100 yards. I've ran steel at 100 yards with my red dot, no problem. And I mean, yeah, I can't see them. What are they going to do? Make us have a 200-yard PCC target? That doesn't really, I don't know. It doesn't really fit what PCC is about to me. I mean, yeah, can you shoot 200 yards? I'm sure you could, but like, that's not, I'll take a rifle at that point.
I feel like the challenges for stuff like that is nothing around my area. I've never been to a match where we have long distance anything. So like people that are from Arizona type area or whatever, like Max's matches that he's running where he has 200-yard steel, like I probably wouldn't want to go to that because I have zero experience doing that and I have nowhere I can even practice that.
Right. And then the other thing is like, when all these pistol guys talk about a PCC offshoot of USPSA or IPSC, whatever, and make it its own thing, to me, I don't feel like there's enough involvement that it would, survive on its own. I mean, that's why we got
it would effectively ruin PCC and
right, which is the third most popular division. I don't know. And I just feel like everybody hates on PCC, like, because you got to add a paragraph for the written stage briefings. And like, yeah, we got to, you got to put an extra mark on the wall for when our muzzle goes. Like,
special timers.
Like, I don't
I
understand.
feel like at the end of the day,
so much hate, I don't get the hate.
People are getting upset about how there's PCC shooters that winning either high overall or really high up in the overall category, but that's not actually a real category. So you're shooting against people within your division. So what does it matter? Like, I'm here to have a good time shooting my division. Why can't we all just shoot our own divisions and compete against people within our division and all get along?
Honestly, I think there is.
If six going to like this ESL scoring thing, they're actually moving away from practice score, where you don't get an overall anymore. You only get.
That would be great. Results. That would end that.
Right. I agree with that.
I really do think there's a lot of give and take between pistol and PCC, though, because there are so many challenges with the PCC to maneuver through a stage. I mean, yeah, you can hit a farther target easier, but I really do think it balances out quite a lot.
Anything that's a tight stage is going to be problematic for a PCC for the most part. Well, and then especially like Mike would say, I have the lefty advantage of the hard leans, but then anything that's a normal lean to a righty on the right side of a stage is going to be extremely hard for me. Being a lefty and PCC shooter adds another layer to that equation.
Well, we actually found that switching to your non-dominant shoulder makes it faster to push back out of that position.
Absolutely. I just
found don't out really as
practice that. Yeah, I mean, but I don't practice that enough because I can't say I've seen it enough to, but like anything, it's something to have in the arsenal of
tools,
stuff that you can do for being successful on a stage with whatever the target presentation is.
Yeah.
Okay, I have another gear question for you.
Well, I was going to say before, I think all the hate for PCC comes from these like 45, 55-year-old guys. Sorry if this is one of our listeners that buy a $10,000 Infinity and they're winning all their locals until one of these hoodlum PCC shooters shows up.
Hoodlum.
Beats them. And to me, I always just go back to if you look at every area match result or, where PCC and Open are both shooting the same match. I mean, PCC is not even ever close. And Max is, I think me and Brian would agree by far the best PCC shooter in the country. And until Max starts winning overall at these matches where, there's like the top end Open shooters, I don't understand all the hate, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like I get that I can take my $2,000 PCC and I can beat your $10,000 Infinity and I might bother you, but.
Yeah, but what does that mean though? Gear price, it's almost irrelevant. I mean, Mason won nationals shooting a 320, so limited nationals.
Yeah, but the same guys are complaining about their $10,000 Infinity being beaten by PCC is also being beaten by guys with Glocks as well. So,
but they just like to say that it's a rifle and a pistol match. That's why I just don't. That's where it's like unwarranted hate, And then I'm like, well, like I always tell the revolver story. Like we'll all sit here and watch a revolver for 45 seconds and take him. He'll take 12 reloads and nobody will say a word, and we'll all paste his targets. But like you're gonna complain that I'm here. I don't even got to reload once. I've done it about a fifth of the time, and like I'm quiet. You
don't even have to pay for your targets sometimes.
One of the things I feel doesn't correlate over though is someone who's a GM or whatever classification in PCC. I don't feel so. Say I'm a GM in PCC. I don't feel that necessarily makes me a master shooter in other divisions. That's why I
sold all my pistols. I agree. I think that's unfair.
Well, because the classifiers don't require a lot of. There are a couple classifiers now with a little bit of movement, but it's not the kind of movement that's going to inhibit a PCC shooter to the point where it evens the playing field on classifiers.
Well, it doesn't. What we're talking about is like if I wanted to go shoot a match right now, a major match, and I wanted to shoot a limited gun, I'd be a master. And like I'm not a master at all. Like that's not fair to me. Like what I get the GM classification with pistols. Like yeah, if you're a GM and open, you're now M at least and limited if you've never shot it before. I mean that's all relative, but and it's a lot easier for somebody to put down a pistol and pick up a PCC and be semi-proficient. So I could see where that almost makes sense. Where an open shooter that's a GM now picks up a PCC, he might be a master if he understands how to move around the course. I mean, he'll get used to doing the rifle. But for me, who primarily shoots a rifle or the pistol caliber carbine, to say that I'm now a master pistol shooter, it's completely different. I haven't shot a pistol in years. And the last 2 times I did shoot a pistol, it was like as a joke at an IDPA match, I was shooting a revolver. Like I'm terrible at revolver. So like I don't practice at all. So it's a little disconcerting for me. Like I'd love to go shoot some majors with a pistol, but like I'm there to win something, and I'm not gonna, there's no way I'm winning first place master, that's for sure, because I'm not even close. So I wish they would change that a little bit, because it is definitely a little different. So I don't know.
Yeah, but then how much do you want to separate it? How much do you want to incorporate it is the next question,
Well, I'm just talking about strictly for, different classifications where like, if I wanted to pick up a limited gun and go shoot a major, I'd be master. That's not fair to me because I'm not even.
Well, it seems like the rules need to be changed. Like you make a classification in the division you're shooting and the rest are left unclassified.
Yeah, I wonder, that's interesting now that you say that. And I know that's always been this way, but I've never really thought about why they did that. Like, Brian, do you have any idea as to why, like?
I mean, I would say predominantly when that rule was made, it was probably based on gun handling skills. Because if you can shoot masterclass open or whatever, most likely you're going to be pretty similar with like carry optics, we'll call it, because you're still used to that dot sight picture. You're going to have that same pistol indexing skills, the reloading skills. Maybe, yeah, you're not using the same exact platform, but your raw skills are going to come through in that aspect. Like, give you or I any other PCC, and we're going to be shooting it pretty similar to our PCC in a very short period of time.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think the reason is to prevent sandbagging.
Yeah, of course.
So
absolutely.
you don't
and there's a lot of people who are, like the sandbag, even like paper GMs that just, they somehow were able to pull off a GM classification in PCC, which I will say is, I don't think it's the easiest thing in the world, to be honest. I tried doing it in 2020 to make GM, and I couldn't do it. I kept busting out because I was pushing hard on classifier stages. And then early 2021, I was just shooting a match, and then I made GM.
Well, what's your take on classifier matches? To me, that's where paper GMs are born, is when you go to a match.
I mean, it can be. It can be.
And
if people want to classify up and they practice classifiers, I mean, fine, but I don't know. I don't have that much desire to chase that. I mean, even now I keep saying I wish I wasn't a GM, so there wasn't so much pressure from competing at that level. I mean, it's probably mostly self-induced, but it's definitely a thing.
Well, there's not.
And then I have people like Mike that just like, praise me, and then I'm just like, oh man, I gotta. I'll admit I was very intimidated coming into Area 6 because of lack of practice over this winter. And I felt people of the Area 6 being from North Carolina and more south have the advantage of not having snow. They can shoot all winter long.
It is snowing at my house right now.
It snowed here yesterday.
Oh, screw
April 18th. And we've been having blizzards for the last few days.
No way.
I've been on my bucket list
flurry here yesterday.
I've been doing the grass for like
throw a snowball at
3
someone,
weeks.
but whatever you guys.
I'm enjoying the no snow, but I'm getting really tired of the cold. Like I'm finding as I get older and older, with my Raynaud's and my it's an autoimmune disease, my hands don't work in the cold. So like every time I go out, and it's even a little bit cold anymore, like it just, my whole body feels stiff, and like I feel like I'm 90 in a 31-year-old body. I got to move to Florida or something where it's warm all the time.
Well, Dave Sadeghi has that autoimmune disease as well, and he's coming back and he's going to start competing again.
Good.
Which one does he have?
Good.
He has an autoimmune disease that affects his joints and his bones.
No, I have one that affects my blood flow or my blood circulation in my hands and my feet. And so like when it's cold out, my hands are really, really cold. They're colder than what everybody else is feeling. So
are you making sure that you're wearing gloves?
Well, there's no cure for it, autoimmune disease, right? There's no cure for it.
Right.
So the only thing
you can
they
have
say is to wear
injections,
gloves.
but
but I can't wear gloves and shoot. I mean, it's such a feel thing, like,
Yeah,
pulling the
but you can
trigger,
wear
feel
gloves
thumb
up
and
until
pad.
you shoot.
Yeah, it
At
just,
Area 6, were you using hand warmers?
I was not. So, and so I wore shorts all on
Mistake.
Saturday, and I was super
Mistake.
unprepared. Well, it was relatively warm up here every once in a while, and I'm like, well, we're going way down south, like, it's going to be 70 degrees. And
I went to that match anticipating it being kind of cold, looking at like the weather projected of that weekend, and then I brought hand warmers, and people thought I was crazy for bringing hand warmers out. They're like, "Oh, it's not that cold." I'm like, "I agree, it's not that cold, but anything to keep my trigger finger warm." So
now, I
had
can
one
tell
just-
you, when I saw you at Area 6, when you had just finished, I was walking around in shorts. I felt just fine. But the next 2 days, it was like 10 degrees colder. The next
It was a lot
day,
cooler in the
wasn't.
morning, so I actually ended up switching out of pants and like a thermal insulated long sleeve into the afternoon. So you can actually see if you watch my match video where I changed from shorts to pants because of exactly that. But then, like, it would be nice out, and then a cloud would roll through, and it felt like it would drop like 10, 15 degrees, and I would be like, I kind of regret my decision of switching, but.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I just feel so much better when it gets a little warmer out and sweating, So I'm, I feel like there's a lot of matches this year that are early. Like we got 2 this weekend. I got a PSA shootout, and then me and Brian are shooting together at Delmarva. And then the following weekend is South Carolina sectional, which I'm hoping that, it's even farther south than North Carolina. So hopefully it's a little bit warmer than Area 6 was, because I'm getting tired of shooting in the cold. I really am. Just feel like
We'll get used to it because nationals, it'll be like 40 degrees too.
Yeah.
Which
Let's talk about nationals. So, Kita, you know that we are going to PCC Nationals in October in Colorado?
I love it.
Like,
It'll
what?
be beautiful out.
Like,
I know.
Are they doing like the X Games in Colorado then? Like Winter X Games? Like,
I'll tell you this
how,
much.
like,
That facility is absolutely beautiful. I shot Bighorn Classic there last year with the Williams sisters. They were really nice, but it was a very beautiful facility. So I'm extremely happy that they're having nationals there. I mean, maybe the timing isn't exactly perfect for
well, that's all I'm talking about.
for you Southerners, I guess, if you want to call it.
I'll be there in 2 weeks.
Oh, nice.
It'll be my first time. I'm excited to see the facility. It's very nice.
Yeah, it's
Me
beautiful.
too. I just, I'm going to be really disappointed, especially being me, that I shooting in the cold is not my friend. If we go to nationals in October and it's going to be 35 degrees, like that's going to be a rough one.
I don't think it'll be that cold. It'll be like probably how it was in North Carolina, where it'll be like 45 to 50.
Yeah. Definitely going to prepare for all scenarios.
Wait, what is that?
45 to 50 with no sun, 20-mile-an-hour winds. Yeah, it was beautiful. Sitting there freezing.
But they have hot springs
Yeah.
somewhere.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, we're going to be.
Bring your hand warmer.
Bring extra hand warmers, Brian.
Bring some mittens and a scarf. Yeah, I'll bring some from mine.
Mittens and a scarf. Oh boy.
Well, we're running out of time here, but I do want to ask you that gear question.
Okay.
Just open-ended. Tell me your take on magazines, the big stick versus the little stick, and what do you do? How do you set that up?
All right, so I only use one mag. Obviously, being PCC, you don't have to reload for that. So it's just since the MPX takes proprietary magazines, it is a 30-round magazine with a +11 base pad that is a turn tactical base pad. And then on my hip, I have a 30-round magazine that's modified to hold 33, I think. And then on my front mag pouch at majors, I carry 2 spares. And on the front one, I have I think it's like 25 or 26 it holds. I fortunately never had to resort to going to any of them ever, but that's what I carry. I carry one in the pocket, which is my start mag that has 41 in it. I got 33 on my right hip since I'm a lefty. That would be what I reload with. It'd be my right hand. And then a 26 round magazine on the front. Just, I don't even know why I have that one there. I just do.
That sounds uncomfortable. That's a lot.
Do you ever, for classifiers or things like that require a reload and you don't need a whole lot of rounds, do you ever use a short stick for that?
No, I prefer reloading with the full length magazines with the +11 base pad, because what I do is I practice. So I have it, I'll grab right above the base pad, and that gives me like the perfect point of being able to put the magazine in the gun without hitting my hand into my mag well.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen other people do it with the shorter magazines, and it's just something I've never practiced. So I use big stick. So if it's a reload classifier stage, I'll actually start with a short magazine, my 20-something round magazine.
So it drops easily if there's a table in the way.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. So like, what was it? Like, I think I have it on my Instagram where it's a mini mart actually. And so I since the magazine's so long, you could sometimes hit it on the table on that one, or even going through ports too. Same thing. Like, got to be aware of the length of the magazine. That's actually kind of messed me up at Mid-Atlantic Sectional last year, where I was trying to get the whole gun through a port on this last portion. Mike, if you
And
probably
you
remember
couldn't.
that stage where you're lying down. And so I tried to get the whole magazine out, but I didn't. And then it was really awkward for that whole last array for me.
Hey, Brian, how'd you finish at the Mid-Atlantic Sectional last year?
I think I won PCC.
Oh, you
I
won
think.
PCC, yeah. So
Pretty
all
sure.
of
Maybe.
Brian,
I
all of
think.
Brian's little complaints, he still wins all the
I
time.
wasn't complaining.
So
It was just an observation.
one day, one day I'm hoping to be a
Mike's
little
goal,
bit for you.
from what he tells me all the time, is to beat me, and
That's it.
maybe
I
think I might have played into it a little bit this coming match, where I was saying how I felt really rusty and all this, which realistically I did. Like my match execution wasn't. Oh, it's all mental. I know.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you think that you're not ready to go for Area 6? Like, you're full of shit. Like, I know that you're lying.
I think honestly,
It was
almost
tough.
everybody feels that way after
Oh,
this whole like
absolutely.
2020, 2021 and the ammo shortage and the quarantines and all that stuff. People aren't getting out and shooting as much, and everybody feels like they've taken a couple steps back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
even if you feel that way, everyone else feels that way too.
Well, I can tell you, steps back or steps forward, whatever. Brian shot an awesome match at Area 6. So no matter, I don't know actually how much practice he's had. I'm sure he has more than he likes to lead on, but he shot a hell of a match at Area 6.
I'll tell you exactly what my practice regimen was. I shot probably about 5 to 6 days a week for 2 weeks prior to the match. So probably about 1,000 rounds a week, 2 weeks prior to the match. And then, I really started training hard 3 weeks prior to the match. And then I just stepped it up a little bit more 2 weeks out and 1 week out, where I was doing about 1,000 rounds a week.
So
Maybe a little bit more. I don't really know. I just load a bunch of ammo and put it in a box, and then I shoot until I'm out of bullets. But I also don't really have like a super regimented practice either. It's mostly just, I see it as gun handling skills, where I'll just shoot at steel plates at a range, and like a C-zone IPSC target type thing, and steel plates, and just try and do different arrays of shooting, maybe some shooting on the move, but nothing crazy.
So you don't actually have like a legitimate written down training regime when you hit the range?
Nope, I don't.
But I'm gonna guess
I
2
don't.
weeks out from a major, you were probably practicing in match mode, not letting the wheels fall off. Instead, you're going for alphas and close Charlies.
Absolutely. I mean, I always have seen just like club matches around the area as practice for majors. Like, I'm not trying to burn it down and have this, high overall win of the match. Like, I could care less about that. Like I've told Mike before too, I don't compare myself to other shooters. Like, I don't look at people. I don't crunch data mid-match. I don't care what anyone else is doing. At nationals, I specifically told people not to tell me how I'm doing, because I don't want to have that mental psych out of, if I push a little bit harder, I might win. I just want to shoot my game against myself.
I will guarantee you, if you keep on doing this, I know it was your first nationals, but if you keep on doing it, you will eventually get to the point where you need to look at scores to be competitive.
I don't doubt that at all. I was actually talking to John Vlieger at A6, because he was on my squad, and he was basically saying the same exact thing. And I'm sure that is very valid.
Yep.
Once you're ready.
Yep, absolutely.
I understand your first nationals. It's kind of like, let me just shoot my match how I shoot my match. Get out of my head.
The thing is I knew the first 2 days I came out very well. I knew I had a solid first 2 days, and then the third day was the more, it was Shannon's section, like section 3 or whatever it was called. Yeah. And that was a lot more challenging. That was definitely where kind of the wheels a little bit fell off for me. But again, those were a very different type of challenging stage.
Yeah, I'm actually, now that you said his name, I think we're looking forward to having him on our podcast at some point coming up here soon. So I can't wait to pick his brain as to what he's doing, about stage design and all this, because his stages are always famous. And it's like, there was 3 zones there, and there was one of them with Shannon's, and I don't think you needed to be much of an expert to tell me which one was Shannon's, because it was,
Yeah.
the most technical, complicated.
Very
one.
challenging.
Yeah.
Very challenging. There were fun stages, but very challenging. And then after seeing other people shoot them, I kind of sometimes wish I had shot things a little differently, but it is what it
Shannon's
is.
very good at options.
Yeah.
The ammo can with a PCC, that was difficult.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
hole
That-
too, not only did we have to carry that damn thing down there, but they cut the hole about an inch bigger than the box. So like you couldn't just like throw it. You had to like put
Yeah.
it perfectly
Yeah.
in the hole. It was like,
There was a lot
Smart.
of strategy
Be
to
smart.
that
yeah.
people
Yeah.
changed their game plans on my squad watching other people shoot that stage. And it was frustrating to have seen other people shoot it after you and be like, wow, they crushed it. I wish I did that like that.
Well, like, how do you feel about like seeing a righty shooter versus a lefty shooter? Is that something that like, can you watch a righty shooter crush it and be like, oh, I'm going to do it the same way? Or like, because like for me, when I know one of the guys on my team is a lefty, and like, he usually just does the complete opposite of whatever I'm thinking. So like, I can't even like communicate with him about stages. Like, how does it go for you? Because I mean, there's not very many-
again, I'll assess what the target presentation is. If it flows well for me, then I can shoot a stage essentially what would be considered backwards to you, but it really depends on the flow of it. If it's not
Mhm.
flowing well, where I have to put my body in awkward positions, I'm not gonna go down that avenue, because I don't want to shoot in uncomfortable positions, like how I've told you before, shooting on 1 foot. That's, in my opinion,
that's comfortable.
plays an
And you just
advantage,
proved me
but
right, though. You proved me right, because you said
inconsistency that
comfortable.
presents, though, the inconsistency that presents is something that I am not going to explore, unless it's like that one-off stage where it's a very short time, high hit factor, low point stage.
Where do you see me do that though? I mean, like, I'm not doing it in the middle of like a transition across a big stage. It's usually in the corners where I can't really see
Usually in
around
the corners,
wall.
but in those stages, you could have been on 2 feet and shot that target, no problem. But for some
Yeah,
reason,
I
you
gotta
decided
get
to be on 1 foot, and then you put like 3 or 4 towards a piece of steel, specifically stage, I think 2 or 3 from A6, where you were shooting on 1 foot, and you did not need to be, and you took like 3 shots to hit that popper. It was the last target of that stage. So.
Yeah, that was
And
stage 2.
you could have shot that and had both your feet planted and have some nice bend in the knees and maybe a little bit of bent over in the waist, and just take a nice
All
sight
the hips.
picture and plop.
You gotta insert the Happy Gilmore. It's all in the hips right here. All in the hips.
Well, if you come take my class in July in New Jersey, Mike,
yeah,
we'll work on that. And I think you could drop 2 to 3 seconds per field course. Easy.
Brian, you should come out too. No, I'm throwing you under the bus.
All right.
Drive down. It's only a couple hours. Let's go.
Yeah, whatever. I'll go.
It's in the Pocono Mountains. You can stay in the house. It'll be very nice.
There's a
Right?
mansion on the range.
Yeah.
Like,
So-
that is the location worth traveling to if you're going to take a class on the road.
Yep. So I'll be there,
Really
Keegan,
fun.
for sure. Though I know we had talked about that a little bit, but I'm definitely coming to that.
Grant, you going to be there?
Grant's gonna
July,
be-
no, I'm in New Hampshire. But I am going to be at Pocono somehow, because apparently they have a hot tub, which is amazing, and I need to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll be working. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Brian.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
That
Yeah.
hour flies by, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely does.
Yeah. But hey, man, thanks for coming on. It was awesome talking to you.
Thank you, Brian. That was
Thanks for having
awesome.
me. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Looking
thanks,
forward to seeing you.
guys.
Look forward to
All right,
meeting all you
cheerio.
guys.
Yeah.
Cheerio.